Hi friends, welcome to our Gemstone Deal channel. Gemstones are valuable stones. As you probably are aware, numerous sorts of valuable jewels, precious stones, pearls, rubies, amethysts, and so forth, they have the magnificence and outrageous worth, and in the fantasy land have a positive understanding. Albeit then again, this fantasy likewise represents avaricious. Dreaming about pearls shows that you should attempt to bring your best side. Similarly, as pearls are cleaned to improve excellence, you should endeavor to limit your restrictions and increment your true capacity. Here is the significance of a gemstone in a fantasy. What's the significance here to dream about diamonds? Whenever you see jewels in a fantasy, this fantasy represents ladies or cash. Numerous jewels implies more cash. Whenever you dream that you see a white jewel, this fantasy represents that you will have a child. Whenever you dream to puncture a precious stone, this fantasy represents wedded or satisfaction. In the event that you see turquoise in a fantasy, this fantasy represents strength and benefit. Assuming you see an emerald in a fantasy, this fantasy represents your kids, sibling or sister, and cash. At the point when you see an agate in a fantasy, this fantasy represents exemplary individuals. Whenever you find in a fantasy that somebody gives you an agate, this vision represents that you will befriend equitable individuals. Whenever you long for pearl, this fantasy represents a decent lady. At the point when you have many pearls in a fantasy, this fantasy represents cash and favor. At the point when you fantasy about seeing a major pearl, this fantasy represents that you will get truckload of cash. Assuming you fantasy about selling pearls, this vision represents that you will get something great. Assuming you fantasy about tossing pearl to the ground, this vision represents that your girl wedded. At the point when you fantasy about getting pearls, this fantasy represents thoughtfulness. At the point when you dream that you get dissipated pearls, this fantasy represents that you will have a ton of children. Assuming you long for counterfeit pearls, this fantasy represents that you are hesitant to frustrate somebody on the off chance that you don't measure up to assumptions. Thanks for watching our video.